Welcome, welcome. Hey, on this very solemn day, September 11th, I just wanted to take a few seconds to share my moment from September 11th. You know, it's been 20 years now since 9/11 happened here in the United States. And 20 years later, we still reflect on this day in history. And you know, for so many of us, this day has reflected to us like for so many, this is a day in which time basically stands still. I remember growing up as a kid for my mother and grandmother, that day was the death of John F. Kennedy back in November of 1963. For those of us now, September 11th will always be a day that will be living in history for us in these days. So I just wanted to take a few seconds to share with you my reflections on September 11th, a day that we must not forget. You know, back in January 2000, I remember George W. Bush Jr. Was actually elected president. And at that particular time, I wasn't a pastor. I was actually working as a community organizer and working with a whole bunch of different issues. And I happened to go to a church where I gave a presentation. We were talking really about finances, economics, and I was sharing basically a thought of privatization of Social Security. And so as I began to share in this presentation, there were many pastors available. And at the end of that presentation, I was invited to go to Washington, D.C. with a group of pastors to meet the new administration, which was George Bush's new administration, as they had just came into office. Well, I had an opportunity to go with a great group of people in which in this 3-day, 4-day event, we had an opportunity to go around to meet many people that were part of the new administration, everybody from senators to the Cheney office, who was the vice president at that time. We met many people from there. We didn't get an opportunity to meet with the president because he wasn't there, but it was a great, great opportunity to meet with people, pastors and people that were coming together from all over the country to meet with the new administration. And one of the things that they were going to be talking about with this brand new program that was going to be introduced by the president called the Faith-Based Initiative. So during those 3 to 4 days, I had a great opportunity with people, meeting them all over the country. And one of the meetings that I really enjoyed, we had an opportunity to meet the brand new Attorney General John Ashcroft. John Ashcroft, also a Christian, began to share with us in this picture that you're looking at. He's showing us the pictures of all of the great thinkers that was around the walls in his office. And he was sharing with us, at that time, he was talking about Moses and talking about the scriptures of Moses and all of the great thinkers, giving us some history of some things that was there in his office. Now, we spent about 45 minutes with Attorney General Ashcroft. And at the end of that time, it was time for him to get ready to go into one of his first meetings. And as we began to walk out of his office, one of the pastors turned around to Mr. Ashcroft and said to him, "Mr. Ashcroft, I have just got a sign from the Lord that before we leave, we should pray for you. The Lord has shown me that something catastrophic would be happening in our country in the next 6 to 9 months, and that we needed to pray for you because you would be needed in this situation. And we wanted to pray for your direction and for your strength during this time." And so in the picture that you're looking at right now, we're praying with the Attorney General, in which we didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but the prophecy from the guy who said this said that something would be happening in our country in the next 6 to 9 months. And it was imperative that we pray for the Attorney General. Now, at that time, I wasn't a pastor. I came back home, and 6 to 9 months later, I found myself in a brand new relationship with some great people in California, Elaine Newburn. And with Elaine Newburn, I was out at their home at that time, and we were working on a program that we were going to put together to be done in Pasadena, California through the school district. So I was there with them in their home, and never forget, I was actually laying on the floor on the morning of September 11th when one of my friends, her husband, came into the room and said to me, he tapped me on the shoulder and he says, "Hey Glenn, are you ready to go to war?" And he knew that I was a military man from the Army. I had been out of the military now about 10 to 12 years. And he says, "Hey man, it looks like the country is under attack." And when I woke up, I saw the image that you see on the screen. The first tower was on fire. And within a few seconds of sitting in the chair, I saw the second plane go into the second tower. And at that particular time, I knew that we were under attack. I'll never forget it, that as I sat there, watched in horror as this took place, I remember that emotionally I had a total breakdown when I saw the first tower collapse. In my mind, I began to think about the thousands of people who were still trapped in the building, not just the people trapped in the building, but the firemen who had begun to go into both buildings. And as I began to see the first tower crumble, I began to shed tears emotionally. Just tears began to stream down my face. And we all know a few minutes later, the second tower came down and it became a place. And then within that point, I think about how the country came together in those moments, because we realized that it wasn't based on color, it wasn't based on religion, it wasn't based on ethnicity, that there was a hatred for our country that brought us together in unity. You know, as I think about these 20 years later, one of the things that I kind of think about, and it makes me sad, is that how divided we are today. And as I think about this, as I think about the hate and the things that's taken place in these days, over even a pandemic where we argue over simple things of life and death, over masks and vaccines and political parties. And as I look at that, I'm like, wow, our country right now is probably more ripe for another terrorist attack than it's probably been in our lives. And my prayer today is we remember 9/11, which will never go away in my life. My prayer today is that we can find unity in our country today, that we can rally together like we did 20 years ago and become the country that God has called us to do. So my prayer today is that God would bring us together in unity, that God would bring us together in love, so that this 20-year anniversary of 9/11 would be a symbol that we can look at and understand that the love and unity that brought us together on September 11, 2001 is possible and should be done again today. God bless you. This is my 9/11 moment, and I hope that you pray like I do, that the unity and the love comes back to our country, because we need it so bad. God bless you.